just get it and I'll give you the money for it. Yeah, that's where I'm Right, thank you, Tom. Welcome, councillors, to this live stream meeting of the Customer Service and Transformation Scrutiny Committee at Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been re-established. This meeting is also being recorded. Can the facilitator confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will just do a roll call of the members and some of the other officers that we have in attendance remotely first. So when I call each councillor's name, could each councillor please confirm their name, their ward, and that they can see and hear me as well? Thank you. I'll start off with Councillor Alan Bailey.
Yes, Councillor Alan Bailey, Clown East Ward. I'm in attendance, yes.
Can you see and hear me okay, Councillor Bailey?
Yes, I can see and hear you okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jane Bryson.
Councillor Jane Bryson, South Normington West Ward. Yes, I can see and hear you okay, Tom.
Councillor Andrew Josbury.
Councillor Andrew Josbury, Southampton East, I can hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Rose Bowler.
Councillor Rose Bowler, also for South Ward. Yes, I can see and hear okay.
Also in the council chamber, we have Councillor David Dixon, Councillor Ray Heffer, and Councillor Mary Dooley. Officers in remote attendance presenting reports today are Anne Bedford, Kath Drury, and Vicky Dawson, and Ken Eastwood. From governance, we have myself, Tom Scott, and Liz Robinson, and the Scrutiny and Elections Officer, Joe Wilson. I'll now hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Tom. I will now ask the facilitator to explain some of the procedures for the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Before we start the meeting, members are reminded of the meeting etiquette that has been circulated to them. All members should have their microphones off during the meeting unless you wish to speak and you've been called on. Members attending remotely, please leave your cameras on during the meeting. Also for remote members, to request to speak, please use the chat function to type speak or raise your hand on camera. The Chair will then call on you to speak during the discussion debate. When a vote is to be taken, this will be by a show of hands. For those attending remotely, please ensure your hand is visible on camera. If any member is disconnected from the meeting, please try to rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the support officers assigned to this meeting in the email we sent to you. If you're about to speak, the meeting will wait a few moments for you to rejoin. I'll now hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I will now begin the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Could the clerk confirm if we've received any apologies today?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Tricia Clough and Councillor Anne Clark.
There's also apologies for Councillor Paul Cooper.
Okay, thank you, Chair. They're noted.
Do any members have any other apologies to note? No? Okay, thank you very much. Right, item 2 then. I have not been advised of any urgent items for today's meeting, so we'll move on to item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest members wish to make? And could I ask the facilitator to confirm any members wishing to speak?
Nobody wishes to speak, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 4, then the minutes. Within the agenda pack, starting on page 5, we have the minutes from 12th of October for approval. I'd like to move these as a true and accurate record of the meeting.
Councillor Ray, for seconding, Chair.
Right, thank you, Ray. Is everybody in favour of that?
That's everybody, Chair.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Bailey, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Yes, please. As I was absent from the last meeting, I would like to abstain from voting on the minutes because I wasn't at the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
I'm sorry, Councillor Bailey, you can still, if you weren't at the meeting, you can't propose and second the minutes, but you can vote on them.
Well, like I say, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know if it's a true and correct copy. I presume it is.
If you wish to abstain, Councillor Bailey, then that's up to
Yeah.
you. That's fine. Yeah, okay.
I'd like to abstain, please.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Right, then if we move on to agenda item 5 then, list of key decisions. The most current version can be found on page 12 of the agenda pack. Could I ask the scrutiny officer to brief members on the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. The current version of the list of key decisions was actually published back in October. There are only 3 items on the current list of key decisions, and all of these were actually dealt with at the executive meeting in November. There are no forward-looking items at this stage, Chair, and all items have been approved. There was an item around the environmental health services review, which we are actually hearing on later today, and the 2 remaining items were also approved at the time, Chair, so we've no new items at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Move the list, Chair, of key decisions.
Jumped in before me, I'll second that. So has members all agreed with that?
It's everybody, Chair.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Right, then we'll move on to agenda item 6, customer service standards and compliments, comments and complaints report, 2019-20, 1st of April 2020 to 30th September 2020. We will now consider the most recent 6-monthly monitoring report in relation to our customer service standards and complaints, covering Q1 and Q2 of 2020-21. We have the Customer Standards and Complaints Officer present to brief members on the work taking place. And could I now pass over to Anne?
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for your time. This is the biannual report which I present to you to let you know how we're doing in relation to customer service standards and the compliments, comments and complaints system, and providing information between those 2 dates, the 1st of April 2020 to September 2020. Looking at the customer service standards, I'll just run through them quickly. With regards to telephony, I'm pleased to say that we are actually, despite the current circumstances, how we're dealing with coronavirus, etc., we did achieve 97% of incoming calls being responded to within 20 seconds. So that's quite pleasing. I do have a little bit of work to do with regards to telephony. The arrangements we have in place doesn't allow calls to be recorded that are diverted from the main switchboard through to people's mobile phones. So that's a piece of work that I'm going to take up with ICT. Contact centre performance, I think that this is going to be looked at in more depth through the performance report, which Kath Drury is going to be presenting. But contact centres, their performance did dip. They achieved 82% in Q1 and the target is 80%, but unfortunately it was 54% in Q2, so it came out as 69% cumulatively. And I do know that that is down to resource issues and obviously staffing issues. Revenues and benefits have got a target of 60% of direct dial calls, and they achieved 70% in the first quarter and 76% in the second quarter, giving a total, a cumulative total of 73%. Emails, 100% were acknowledged within 1 working day, and 98.5 were responded to in full within 8 working days. Face-to-face monitoring, that wasn't carried out again, and that was due to COVID-19 arrangements. I know we touched on this at the last meeting, asking why that wasn't carried out. This is a thing that is done by contact centres, and obviously for quite a chunk of those of that time, the contact centre was closed, and also it does take quite a few resources to actually do the monitoring. I think as well we've got to be mindful that we're not actually encouraging people to go into the contact centres. We are trying to encourage people to do things remotely because of coronavirus. So that will get picked up when the situation stabilises. Looking at compliments, comments and complaints, we did receive quite a lot of compliments, and this is quite cheering due to the circumstances. We received 123 compliments, and there is a selection of those at Appendix 3A. Comments, we did receive quite a lot of comments as well. 65 of those were acknowledged and passed to the respective departments. Some of these, 21 of them, were about the suspension of the green bin recycling service, and so we did respond to. There are other comments that we do respond to, even though we just usually pass them over to the department to consider. Some of them did require a response, so those were responded to. Complaints, frontline resolution, Appendix 3C shows the number of frontline resolution complaints. These are the ones that go through to contact centre and are passed to the department to respond to within 3 working days. We did have a little problem with the housing system. The new housing system has actually been up and running, and so I've not been able to extract the data for housing repair complaints. However, I'll bring that report to you at the end of the year when I've retrieved that data. Looking at the figures, 93% of the frontline resolution complaints were responded to within 3 working days, and that is an improvement on this time last year where it's 91%. Formal investigations, Appendix 3D shows the number of formal investigations by department. Looking at the numbers, in Q1, only 70% were responded to within 15 working days. And that, as you will realise, it was at the peak of the coronavirus, and we were just putting things in place. So 14 out of 20, which equates to 70%. In Q2, 98% were responded to within 15 working days. That was 41 out of the 42 complaints. So cumulatively, this works out at 88%, which is below the target. Hopefully, things have now evened out, and that will improve. There were no trends in this period. Internal review stage 3 complaints, in the Q1, 100% were responded to. That was 10 out of the 10 received, were responded to within 20 working days. In Q2, 7 out of the 8 were responded to within 20 working days, with the remaining 1 being responded to within 21, which is just 1 day over the target period. It was a very complex enforcement issue. Ombudsman complaints, Appendix 3F shows the status of Ombudsman complaints as at the 19th of November. It shows the decisions that were made. So during the reporting period, we received 1 decision from the Housing Ombudsman Service, and that was of no maladministration. The report also shows 1 that was just outside of the reporting period, which was the Ombudsman cannot investigate the complaint because the complainant had already been to the planning inspector for appeal. So as you'll see, I've also included some of the, as I was asked at the last meeting, I also provided information about cross-cutting complaints and compliments and comments. As you can see, I've had to do a little bit of work around this to extract that data. Is this something that you would like to be brought to you in future about cross-cutting compliments and comments and complaints? And would you like it in this format?
How does members feel? I think it's it would be important information, and yeah. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, I can see one or two. Yeah, okay, thanks, Anne. That's it.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions at all?
Has anybody got any questions or comments?
Chair, I do, with Councillor Ray Heffer. And I'm a bit confused here when we've got 75 complaints about street services. Have you got a breakdown at all and what they was for, please?
Is that, sorry, Councillor Heffer, is that in the
Complaints via contact services, the Part C, Anne.
It's on page 21 at page.
Yes, right, yes. I think these are the run-of-the-mill type, they're the frontline ones, so this will include things like mist bins. These are the ones that are recorded through contact centre. I can look into those in more depth for you, but I would say possibly this was due to COVID restrictions, etc., arrangements. I think it might be the fact that people were not happy if the bin was emptied late, etc. It's something that I can keep my eye on, but if you look at the number proportionally to how many contacts there are, so over the 6-month period, it's about all of the collections. And I don't know, I don't have the figures to hand, but I would imagine there are several thousand collections during the 6-month period. I can look into that more deeply for you if you wish me to.
Chair, and I don't want to find you worked up because you've got plenty to do as it is, but it just seems such a lot. I mean, if it is bins, mist and the likes, or whatever, you know, it's probably not a lot, but it could be something else, and that's why I just ask you, Anne, please.
Yeah, yeah. I can look into that and report back to you, Councillor Heffer, outside of this meeting. That's okay.
Yeah, we
Thank
did,
you.
did have an email last week, Ray, and it is down to COVID that's causing a problem with the site where they take it to. It's mostly recycle bins that's been missed. Mary, did you want to come in?
Yeah, on them lines, Chair. Yeah, we did have a very, very long email from the officer, Steve Brunt, and he did advise us on all the paragraphs, what happened. And it was so no disrespect to Ray, but if you haven't read the email, Ray, it is a very long one, and it justifies everything what is saying in it.
Joanne, did you want to say something?
Just to say that I thought it would be quite useful if we did get that extra clarity from Anne. Obviously, it was raised at Healthy, Safe, Clean and Green last time. It is something we've been keeping an eye on. We discussed it again at our pre-meet for December Healthy meeting. So anything that you can give us, Anne, would be greatly received, to be honest, because it is something we're trying to keep an eye on. I appreciate, obviously, the email that Councillor Dooley spoke about. So if that is something that can be shared in any way, if there's some additional detail, that would be really useful.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody else got anything? No, I'd just like to say I've been reading through the compliments again, and it's been a very hard year for everybody. And you know, I think reading these comments, it sort of lifts spirits, and it must do for departments as well. So well done, everybody. If there's no more comments or questions, I'd like to move the recommendation on page 16.
I'll second it, yeah.
Thank you. Is everybody in favour of that?
Everybody, Chair.
Lovely, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Anne. You're free to leave the meeting now.
Thank you. Bye.
Right then, agenda item 7, ambition plan targets, performance update, July to September 2020, quarter 2, 2020-21. Within the papers is the quarter 2 performance report for all ambition and service targets linked to the committees. Members have received some additional supporting information for this item as part of the agenda in relation to service indicator CUS01. If we could pass over to the information engagement and performance manager. Kath, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So as noted by the Chair, it's the Q2 performance report based on the council targets that sit under the relevant aims for this committee to monitor and scrutinise. So as noted in the covering report, there are 6 council level targets and they're all on track. And then in addition, there are also 21 service indicators, which you can see 14 have returned positive outturns for this quarter. 4 have been affected by COVID pandemic and 2 have returned a negative outturn and 1 was within target. So I'll just turn to the appendix, which members will have as well with their papers. Just to tease out a couple of bits on the appendix though, because it's largely a very positive report. Just to note under CUS03, just for members' attention, this is obviously a new target and it's quite an ambitious target. And it's also one that's quite tricky to measure. So this is ensure that at least 50% of all transactions are made through digital channels by December 24. And this sits with the digital transformation strategy. So it's a key one to watch. At the moment, as some members are aware, the council is counting all online transactions, so that's everything that comes through the website and automated telephone payments, those sorts of things. But it's only counting non-digital channels in relation to the contact centres at the moment, and that's because it holds that information. With the customer relationship management system, it has all that data at its hands, so it can look at all the transactions that the contact centres do. But with relation to online, obviously online services are wider than just the contact centre. So just bear that in mind that at the moment that's the way this target is being measured. But this target will evolve and adapt as we get better information to support it. So just a bit of a health warning around this target. But you can see from the data provided in the appendix from the customer services, you can clearly see what the online transactions are for both Q1 and Q2, and you can also see what the non-digital contact volumes are as well, and then how that equates to the percentage. So it's clearly laid out, it's very transparent, so that is good. And hopefully over the rest of the council plan, we'll be able to bring other data into this target that sits under leisure, revenues and street scene, because they've been selected as the areas to monitor for, around this target. So just thought I'd give a little bit of explanation around that target there. And just a bit of an update on the single equality scheme, which is target 05. That's now been to executive, and the achievements have been noted with the council achieved under the scheme under its first year review, and that will be, it's now been designed and will be published on the website, so it will be available for the public and other stakeholders to see what progress the council's been making over the last year. Nothing further for me on the council plan targets, as noted, all on track. Then under the service indicators, as you can see there, we've got the performance ones and then governance. And you know from Anne's report that the stage 3 complaints came below target this time, and as I noted, that was because one was out of standard, so not a major issue, one complaint. And we are talking very small numbers here, so 8 internal reviews under CSP 21, 7 were dealt with within timescale, and 1 was out of timescale, and I think Anne said 21 days, so not particularly a concern there. Good level of performance, as these complaints tend to be quite complicated when they get to that stage. And then on the customer services one, we've got the telephone calls one, was answered within 20 seconds. And as Anne said, and as noted rightly at the pre-meet, obviously this target is quite a bit below standard at Q2, so 54% outturn against a target of 80. And at the pre-meet, questions were asked about that target, so that a little bit more information could be presented at this meeting. So I think members have got this additional information too, so I'll just make reference to that now that we're at that point. So if you just bear with me. So hopefully you've got the breakdown, the table breakdown that shows contact centres telephone call volumes between April and October, so you can clearly see that the total number of calls received all the way from April through to October. You can see that April and May we're talking roughly about 5,500 phone calls, and then in June you can see a big step change up to 7,200, and then 7,800 in July, drops a little bit in August but still over 7,000, 7,500 in September, and drops slightly in October but still over 7,000. So a big step change in the number of calls from June onwards. And you can see from the percentages of the calls answered, so this is answered but not necessarily within time scale, 99% in April and May, which is obviously a fantastic level of answering calls, drops to 95% in June, but obviously still very good, holds up at 97% in July, which is still very good, drops to 91% for August and September, and then back up to 98% in October, which is obviously started the Q3 reporting period. So I don't think members need to be concerned about the percentage of calls being answered, because the statistics are all 90+% for those. Where the performance drops is when we start to look at how many of those were answered within 20 seconds. So you can see from the table, April and May are obviously 87 and 86% respectively. Drops to 72% in June as we note the call volume start to increase. Drops to 67% in July, and then August is the lowest figure at 46%. Then increases slightly to 50% in September, and then back up to 76% in October. So that's where the performance, you can tell the performance has suffered with the calls taking longer to answer, but bearing in mind high numbers of calls have been answered, which if you're somebody on the end of the phone wanting to speak to an officer, that's really important that your call does get answered. And then the number of calls abandoned, you can see the percentages there, 1% in April and May, 5% in June, 3% in July, 9% at its worst in August and September, back down to 2% in October. So I think members were probably are looking for reassurance that obviously Q2 was not the high standard of performance that we normally have with the contact centre service, but it looks as though it's back to usual levels of performance in Q3. And obviously I can bring that information at the Q3 report time. So members were looking for a little bit more information around what the issues were specifically. And you can see from the note that the customer services manager has let us know. Obviously, the summer period is usually a difficult time of year because it's peak holiday time. Most people want to take holidays in the summer, and the staff are no different to anybody else. But obviously, that also coincided with COVID, and COVID also meant that some people needed to take parental leave because of childcare reasons, and obviously kids not being at school. So there was a lot of issues there for this service to have to deal with at that time. Further explanation given here, 57 days sick leave during Q2. The service also had 3 vacant posts during the same period. All those have now been recruited to following July interviews in July. Start dates 2 started in September and 1 in October. But as you can imagine, obviously these new starters need to be trained. There's a lot to learn in the contact centre service. You've got to get used to all the new technology that they use, but also the spread of enquiries that they deal with and picking up that relative knowledge. So training's been undertaken and now they're delivering a full service via the telephones and face-to-face. So their contribution to the service will start to really filter through in Q3. So I'd expect better figures in Q3. And then just some further information from the officer to say that as we all know, July and August is peak time for annual leave. And they have quite strict rules in the contact centres about how many officers can be off at any one time. But obviously with the childcare parental leave provision due to COVID, they had to accept more leave requests than they would usually. And that's because of COVID and the restrictions, difficulties around that. So they have provision to use overtime where they can, but obviously staff may not have been as flexible as they would be normally because of childcare or parental leave provisions. So that's obviously made it difficult. So I think it's fair to say for the contact centres, it's been an extremely challenging situation in Q2, but the early indications at the Q3 figures looks like it's business as usual and it's back to their usual high standards. So hopefully that's given members the reassurance they were looking for. And I think it's quite nicely detailed, the table there. So hopefully members have found that helpful. And then just to finish off on the indicators then. So after the customer service ones, we've got financial services and then we've got revs and benefits. And you'll see from those suite of indicators that all the collection rates, so council tax arrears, NNDR arrears, business rates collected and council tax rates collected, all those figures have been affected by COVID because of people's difficulty in keeping their payments on track, and also we put a stop on recovery action for a time. So those two things have combined to affect the figures. So I don't think members will be surprised by that, but at least you can see clearly what the Q2 figures are against the targets. And then the rest of their indicators are absolutely fine. So they're all above target or on target in relation to telephone calls being answered and abandonment rates. So some positive indicators there for revs and bends. And I think that demonstrates for them how working from home has really helped them absorb extra work and keep on track with their targets around telephony, which is very good to see. So that concludes the report. So that's the indicators and the relevant council plan targets for this committee. So that's the report. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, has anybody got any comments or questions? Mary?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you've already said about this exceptional year, and for our staff to even reach the targets, it's been exceptional. And I say well done to our staff. And Kath, it's so nice to get, when you get these targets, that you get an explanation, because in the past we haven't had. So it's to our staff, a well done from me.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, David.
Yeah, hi, Kath. Thanks for this. It is quite comprehensive, and yeah, I think we have done very well. However, there's one question I'd like to ask. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to answer it, really.
Okay.
And that's CUS03, where we're going to be becoming more and more reliant on digital services. Just how secure are we? You know, and what would be, you know, if we did have if it fell over, where would it leave us in terms of backup?
I think the only, you're talking about the ICT resilience, aren't you? You're talking about the infrastructure. And I think, obviously, I don't work in ICT, but I am the data protection officer. So I do work quite closely with ICT regarding security of systems. So I don't think there's any concerns there, but I think it's obviously a valid consideration to have. And I know we've now got a new risk group, which is being chaired by Councillor Mosby, and ICT security is one of the key themes of that group, alongside data security. So it's something that the council and members are, and Lee Hickin, who's the relevant director regarding risk, that we're keeping a mindful eye on, that obviously that we are secure, because it is very important that data is secure. So I'll obviously take your comments back to that group, but I don't think you need to be unduly concerned.
Thanks, Kathy. I was just thinking more about, not about, if you like, people breaking into our system. I'm worried about if we had a catastrophic failure, where would it leave our services then?
I think the two things are tied up together, because a catastrophic failure you would expect our things that we've got in place to make sure that doesn't happen. So I know at times we may have the network goes down, so you may not have access to your emails, but this doesn't happen very often. And they're the things that will disrupt service delivery. But I think what I will do is ask ICT just to give me some bullet points on this, and I can then share that with this committee, so that you've got that reassurance about what would happen if we did have a catastrophic failure. Lots of things we've got in place to stop that. But we obviously have business continuity plans. We're part of the Derbyshire-wide business continuity. So each service has a continuity plan. Contact centres will have a business continuity plan as to what things they'll put into place if they suffer a loss of their systems, and every service has that. And they're the plans we have to bring into force. Usually we enact them when there's flooding or there's snow. They're the main triggers, but equally we'd enact those plans if there was issues around our internet access and business systems.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Cal.
Alan, was you indicating to speak?
No.
Okay, thank you. Right, is there any more comments or questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to move the recommendations at point 6 within the report on page 25 of your papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is everybody in favour?
If you can see me.
Oh, hello.
Everybody,
Reece.
Chair.
Can you see me, Rose?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. I'm on now.
Hello. Right, thank you, Kath. You're now free to leave the meeting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, we'll move on then to agenda item 8, work programme for 2021. Moving on, we shall now consider our work programme for the coming year, and I'll pass over to the Scrutiny Officer to present.
Thank you, Chair. So members will be familiar with this report. If I could direct you to the appendix and page 37. This obviously from here on in is our remaining meetings from the year. We've got our informal meeting today where we'll be looking further at our new review around IT services and support. And we've got some additional items still to come today to follow up on some post-scrutiny monitoring of our previous review around environmental health and licensing. Later in the year, we've got further ambition performance updates, both in February and May. And we've got additional items still to set for the remaining meetings of the year after Christmas for February, March and May. We have work still ongoing in relation to our reviews from last year on voids and new bowls over. Both of those have been slightly impacted as a result of COVID-19 and the restrictions of work on site, etc. So they're still ongoing at this stage, although more or less complete. And I'd happy to take any questions from members, Chair, or if there's any other items members like to consider, add into the work programme for the remainder of the year.
Has anybody got anything?
Chair, I'm going to leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Right, I would like to move the recommendation of point 6 within the report, page 34 of your papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Is everybody in favour?
Everybody in favour, Chair.
Right, thank you, Tom. Right, we will now move to item 10, post-scrutiny monitoring, a review of delivery of environmental health and licensing progress update. Discussion of this item will include discussion of sensitive and exempt information. So I move that the public be excluded from the meeting during the discussion of the following items of business to avoid the disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. And I need a member to second this.
Councillor Ray have for seconding it.
Too late, Ray, I've done it.
Are you
Oh,
all in
early this
favour of
morning.
that? Are you all in favour? Andrew?
That's everybody, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. The live now terminate because this is the last item on the agenda within the public part of the meeting, and members will then discuss the exempt report. Thank you for watching.